Hey, I hope everybody's doing fine tonight. I wanted to release this video a while back. I've been putting it off, so this is pretty much about, I guess, global warming and energy. So much more recently. I know gas prices are going back up. That's never a good thing, so I think baby drill is still an option. And one thing I want to remind people about is there is a fourth dimension when we talk about these things. Fourth dimension being time. And if you think back, most of our energy production things had their moment in time. But what you can remember, or what you might not think about, is you don't have to accept the status quo. And one fine example I'll give you is, oil wells are obviously, if you want to read a good thing on carbon dioxide emissions relative to energy, there's a great article in National Geographic right now. It outlines pretty much different types of energy production and the resulting carbon dioxide input or carbon dioxide output on the environment. So it's a good article to read. I just want to tell you, my name is Brian Garten. I have an LLC called Bella Garten LLC. I have many inventions for all kinds of things. I have a lot of great green inventions, which I haven't put out there yet. And I've seen several expeditions to some glaciers and things, and I've read some material, and I think here's the one. This really isn't that far out there if you think about it. I mean, I have some downright easy things we could do, and I have some huge things we could do. But one thing I think in particular, which would be good, is I was watching this expedition to these glaciers. It was on PBS, and I noticed some of the glaciers, the water was caving in, going down underneath the glacier between the soil and the ice, causing more ice to slip off the soil and fall into the ocean and melt. And we're talking about ice shelves melting and all these things. And one thing I want to remind the world is, if we take some international cooperation, put a bunch of us together, we can use science and some relatively easy things to actually counteract that type of activity. Besides all the huge global warming things we could do to decrease carbon dioxide emissions, there's one big huge scale thing we could do. Picture this in your mind. I don't want to draw it out right now like I always do, because it may not come out that good, but I don't know if you could see it or not. But I think some of you are familiar with oil exploration that uses the little tubes that go down underneath the earth and emit steam and then draw out oil. One thing I'll note is that does produce more carbon dioxide than just oil wells, because you have to heat, obviously you have to create steam with heat. But one thing I might recommend, the way we're burning the natural gas to create the heat, I think if there's a way to make that much more efficient and reduce the amount of carbon dioxide, I say go for it. So I wanted to throw that in right now. And but let me not get off track, because I always place here. But I think if we take, we might make it might take too much time, but maybe we could build some giant windmills. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe we could build some giant windmills on these glacier areas. And what we can do, because see, if we try to use snow makers, if we try to use compressed gases, any refrigeration system, a byproduct of the compression is heat, and there always has to be something to shed the heat. Some type of condenser to shed the heat, get rid of the heat. So what I think we can do relatively simply build some giant windmills. Okay? Now, on the end of these windmills, we can put water pumps. Picture this, we put water pumps. Long piping into these areas where the water is caving in. And what we can do is, we can scavenge this water, run it through these series of pipes, and collect this water, send it back to these areas that are caving into the ground where the water is running underneath the ice and out to the ocean. What we could do is pick this water up with these pumps, send it back to the site fully, what form it is. It may still have salt water in it. Keep in mind the salt water raises the freezing point. What we can do is we could clean the salt out of it, re-inject it back into these lower caverns that are not freezing, and maybe create ice underneath in these areas that are right now thawing out, and then causing, what they do is they thaw out under the ground and more ice breaks away and falls. Well, if we freeze all that by removing the salt but injecting water back into these areas with these giant water pumps on these windmills, we may stop that from happening. Also, as opposed to using compressed gases, which creates heat, and obviously there will be something running and create more carbon dioxide, we could use the wind power to power these pumps, and then we can use what's called an endothermic reaction. There are actually some cooling systems out there that are invented using these small fan sources with ice that cools rooms down. We could take the same philosophy of an endothermic reaction in science, the evaporation of water and the cooling effect, take the same principle of endothermic reactions. These windmills, when they blow across this ice, obviously it's going to lower the air temperature, and also at the same time we'll be pumping cleaned water into these saltwater areas that aren't freezing, causing them to freeze. So we can do two things. We can also scavenge water from other areas, clean it, and put it up in areas on the glacier, maybe refreeze more water. So we can actually build these glaciers up bigger, and at the same time take measures to keep them from melting and falling into the ocean. And this obviously has two advantages. There's more ice up on the top of the glacier that lowers the sea level. I know it doesn't do it much, but if we do this in a whole lot of places, it may help. And of course, the more we freeze on top of the glacier, the more ice will be frozen there longer, and the more we address these caverns of these sinkholes where the water falls in underneath the glacier and goes down and creates large chunks of the final ocean. If we use tubular systems to inject the cleaned water into those areas, then we can make them refreeze and they're not going to fall and break off. Any marine biologists, environmental people in the world, you can address what we may need to do with that leftover salt. I don't know if you want to just get rid of that and bury it, or create salt out of it, or if you can use it for cities for, salting streets or something. I don't know. I'm sure we could use it for something. If we have to add any back into the water for the to sustain a certain level around the glaciers for impact on ecosystems, we can do that. But just think of this simple idea and think of what we could do with it. Also, I say build the grid. Let's build these big solar grids. We got Arizona, we got California, we got New Mexico, we got Nevada. We have a lot of warm states. We can put these big solar grids in. We can use these big refracting mirrors on the pipes for heat sources. All kinds of great things like that we can do.